You've got a massive chip in that mug.
I have got a massive chip.
I haven't even got a mug with me. All of my mugs are chipped, so I'm not going to pass judgment out. That is quite a substantial chip, though.
If it's only one, if I drink it the other way, we wouldn't know.
Oh no, but then you're drinking from the chip. No, don't do that.
It's weird. It's weird on your tongue.
The Sheer Isolation podcast is presented by Kieran Moore and Jon Ponting. That's some really funky opening credits we've got there, Kieran.
They are awesome opening credits, made by our friend Rachel Clark, and the audio overture, the guitar work, is Simon Green from Trowbridge.
You've got some amazing contacts, haven't you? Whatever you need, just ask you and it just appears a week later.
Well, you know what it's like with Sheer? Like, basically the whole thing is a platform for people to be expressive and creative. And we're all doing it for the beauty and the love of what we do. I have to be employed full time because Sheer doesn't pay for me to work. So we all have to donate and give, and hopefully we create something more than the sum of its parts. And I think that's all we're at with Sheer, and that it goes to testament the fact that people were willing to do these wonderful things for us. So yeah,
you are such a hippie, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Except you're a short-haired hippie.
After Ben's amazing hair last week on Instagram, I'm going to grow my hair really long and grow it out and be like emo Kieran from like 2004 again.
Oh, so by autumn this year, you're going to have your own Kieran afro?
By June, I think. Cool.
Okay, I ain't far away. Right, once again, it's been far too long before we've actually said welcome to the Sheer Isolation podcast.
Welcome.
Joining us. We've had so much lovely feedback from the last couple of shows. It's been really, it's taken off a bit, which is nice to know.
It's been amazing. People are obviously that bored they're willing to listen to us talk.
I know. It may have helped that we had Frank Turner on last week, and we've got the second part of the Frank Turner interview coming up later on in the show. I think we may have been a bit presumptuous last week just by thinking that this was just going to be watched by the Sheer family, and so many other people have now got on board with it. Some people have been in touch to say we just don't know Frank Turner's music. We've not heard of him before. So you've known him for a long, long time, Kieran. So you're probably a good place to start by just a very quick rundown of who is this Frank Turner.
Frank Turner is ex-hardcore punk singer turned acoustic folk punk troubadour.
Nice little summary.
In a nutshell, that's it.
In a summary. He's kind of lived the ideal life for somebody in that position of being a musician and actually being able to make it and get himself known and out there and just gigging every night and being able to support himself financially by doing that from nothing. He didn't walk into a record label. He's put a lot of hard work in. You with music, to succeed, you have to live it. It has to be who you are. It has to be everything that you do. You can't achieve it and be part-time. And Frank did that from a very early age. So yeah, it's really no surprise when you learn about all the crazy stuff that he's done. But yeah, he just committed himself to it 100% and turned out to end up headline Wembley. So it can happen to anyone.
It can.
Not me, though.
You've got to have talent as well, by the way.
Yeah,
you've got to have talent as well.
Yeah.
He worked hard, but he's also got a lot of talent.
But that's why we don't play at Wembley.
That's why we don't play at Wembley.
Yet. When they bring podcasts to Wembley, that's when we shine.
Yeah, that'll be the day.
Oh, right. You have selected our first song for this show, which is a chap called Tom Jenkins. Who's he?
Yeah. So Tom, he's ex-alumni of Extra Mile, which is Frank Turner's label. And Tom used to be in a band called Straight Lines, who are a Welsh kind of punk rock band. They were absolutely fantastic band. I saw them live a fair few times. And then he went solo with a solo album that was just sensational, staggeringly good. Probably in my top 10. I played it to death. Anyway, he's just about to release a new EP dedicated to the people of Pontypridd. It's to raise money for them who had all their homes flooded in February last year. So it's his new track called When the Coal Dust Settled.
My forefathers spent half their lives down a mine, worked in a world where the sun don't shine. nails will keep on digging till the devil's door. They were all for each other, one for all. My grandfather died when the cold dust settled deep in his lungs, with his heart once rattled, for the love of the land and the dirt in his hands. Mary worked hard on the old factory line, slave to the bottle, always showed up on time. And when they eventually shut those factory doors, they marched through the valley on a lost cause. Governments were branded cold hard liars. Stories sang through the male voice choirs, for the love of the land and their heart in their hands. My old man told me, push a pen, not a shovel. Head up high, keep yourself out of trouble. Yeah, stand on the land with the soil in our hands. My grandfather died when the cold dust settled deep in his lungs, where his heart once rattled, for the love of the land and his heart in his hands.
So that was Tom Jenkins with When the Cold Dust Settled. You say that's coming out shortly.
Yeah, so he's got a new EP, 7 tracks, I think. It's imminent, so it may even be out now. I think it was up for pre-order on iTunes, and he was doing incredibly well, so it might well be out this week. So
This is a very difficult time to be releasing EPs and albums. I'm not sure how as a musician you manage that when you can't get out and gig and sell your merch.
with great difficulty, I'm sure. I think a lot of people had this pre-programmed, and you've still got to go ahead with it, haven't you? You know, you paid for the printing and the release date, and you've already set it up on your digital sharing. You can't really back out once you've gone up past a certain point. So, yeah, releasing.
I think what we're going to see after lockdown and when life starts to get back to normal, there's going to be a lot of the smaller musicians who would be more flexible. There's just going to be a load of album releases later this year in one big hit. It's going to be a fun time for us to pick out who to listen to.
It will be, and there'll be a lot of lockdown blues, I think. So, but they do say great trauma creates great art. So I'm expecting lots of great art off the back of this.
That's going to be a whole new music genre, isn't it? Lockdown blues.
Lockdown blues.
We look forward to hearing that later in the year. Let's get some lockdown blues tracks going. Right, it's probably time for us to play the second part of our Frank Turner interview. So we chatted to Frank a couple of weeks ago, and the interview went on a lot longer than we were expecting, which was lovely to speak to him. But it did mean we thought we'd best split it in half, otherwise we wouldn't get to have said anything last week. Just all have been Frank. So the main reason Frank agreed to talk to us, well, first off, because Kieran's just so good at convincing people to talk to us, but also he wanted to talk about the Music Venues Trust.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, the Music Venues Trust. Mark David does an amazing amount of work at government level, lobbying for the rights of the music industry. And so Frank does a lot of work for them. And that was part of what came out in the interview. So over to Frank.
I was going to ask a question just about record labels, because we're obviously focused on the venues and the musicians and the people at the front of gigs. But obviously there's a lot of people in the background working at record labels. I wonder how they're feeling about all of their artists now going off and streaming stuff for free.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question, and I think a lot of that will depend on what level of artist that you're talking about. Something that Mark David said to me a while back, which I think was a really interesting point, is that there are some winners from this in the music industry, and we're mainly talking about the streaming services, and the minutiae of the economics of streaming has been a sort of a potentially sore point for some time, and I think that debate might well move along quicker, which is something I'm all in favor of. But you know, it's an interesting one because, like, you know, take a record label like Extra Mile, the label that I work with. It's sort of a bit of a double-edged sword for them, because on the one hand, it's like, well, okay, you know, people are at home and people might sit there and order some records from a record label as opposed to gig tickets, for example. But then on the other hand, it's like, for a label of that size, and indeed for an artist, for me, like, you know, playing live is how I promote a record. I've got my plan before all of this kicked off was to be in the studio in August making a new album that was going to come out in sort of like January next year. And I'm now not sure if that's what we're going to do, simply because, you know, the problem with purely online promotion is that online is this avalanche of information overload 24 hours a day. What the problem is cutting through. Do you know what I mean? Part of the reason with No Man's Land, last record I did, that we did a track a week with a podcast episode, is that means you get, because it's almost like if you release one song or release an album, you kind of make the same kind of splash. And many artists I know in the last few years have experienced the thing of spending a year working on a record and then putting it out, and then you get about 2.5 days of people giving a shit, and then everybody moves on to the next thing because there's so much coming at you. And the only way of countering that is to tour and to go out there and to be in cities. And if you can't tour, then you know, I'm not 100% sure it's worth my while releasing a record, essentially, until I can tour it properly.
And I thought the way that you did the last album actually really worked. So if you, like you say, if you can take something away from this, that's perhaps a way of dealing with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, certainly I know artists who are sort of thinking about, I mean, before all of this, we're talking about, you know, releasing 2 EPs rather than 1 album to try and get 2 bites of the cherry, as it were. But nevertheless, I mean, I don't think that much of that kind of calculus has changed, really. In fact, it's probably got worse, given that everybody's now trying to shout about stuff purely online. You know, and I think that, you know, we announced this morning we're doing a live album, and that's kind of fun, but that's not like a frontline thing for me. Do you know what I mean? I'm very proud of it, don't get me wrong, but it's like, that's just sort of like, cool, enjoy this. Whereas, you know, an actual kind of frontline record is something that I wants to be 2 years of worth of my life on either side, really. And I want to make sure that it lands in the way that I need it to, and that I want it to, both from an artistic point of view and a financial point of view.
I did actually see a very short quote from you on another website just this week, how the new album is going to sound, and I was like, ooh, roots, punk rock and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of am wary about giving the game away too early, not least because, like, I can be quite changeable in the studio, but certainly I sort of feel like, having done kind of like a dance pop record followed by a history folk album, that it would be fun to just make a kind of pop punk record, basically. But we'll see. I mean, it might be heavier than that. It might not. That's all I'm going to say. But I've got 14 songs in the can at the minute, and I'm trying to get to like 20, and then sort of, you know, pick the good stuff, as it were.
I suppose it's just really difficult to plan anything at the moment, just because we just don't, as you said earlier on, we just don't know how many months this is going to sit, and our attitudes and fashions could well have changed by the time we come out of this. So it's really difficult to plan that far.
Yeah, one of the other things I find is that, like, I'm reasonably confident there's going to be a glut of songs about isolation and social distancing in about a year's time, which, first of all, I mean, I'm not sure how much I want to contribute to that, but I also feel like if we get to some kind of normality in a year's time, or whenever it is, that people are going to be kind of bored of talking about it to a degree. Do you know what I mean? Or I think that there will be room for really incisive, intelligent comment on the situation. But a song, you know, for me to sit here and write a song right now that goes, it's rubbish being locked inside your house, you know, in a year's time, I think people are going to be like, yeah, I remember, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? And
want to move on.
But then the problem with that, though, is that, by contrast, when I sit down and at the moment, because, you know, when this first kicked off, part of it for me was like, well, there's going to be loads of time to write and to demo stuff. And part of the problem with that is just that, like, I find it quite difficult to focus mentally on other things, you know? most other things feel pretty kind of insignificant right now. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a catch-22. I sort of, when I first got home, I did a whole bunch of writing, and then I've sort of actually haven't written very much for a little while, simply because I've just been sitting here being like, what the actual fuck? But I guess, obviously we shall see how that works out. I'm sort of hoping that in a way, the longer this goes on, the more there's sort of all those short-term considerations kind of get a bit exhausted. You know what I mean?
And we'll all be gagging to get back and do some proper real stuff very soon. I'm my venue, I'm missing my work, I'm missing my friends. I spoke to the manager earlier today, and she's like nearly in tears because she's missing everyone. She doesn't know what to do with herself.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, one of the things with that, like, I mean, this is a comment that lots of other people have made, and more intelligently than me, but like, there was when it first kicked in, there was a bit of like, it's the great leveler, we're all in this together, and that's not true at all, actually. In terms of the way that people cope with isolation, and like, I mean, I'm fortunate. I like my house. I have a little bit of outdoor space. I have my cat. I have my wife, and we get on very well, which is a pleasant surprise because this is the longest period of time we've ever spent together, like ever, by fucking miles.
Right.
But and I know people who are self-isolating alone. I know people who are self-isolating with a large family in a small flat with no outdoor space, and that's before you even touch on issues like domestic abuse or anything like that, and like
mental health problems.
Well, exactly. And I mean, well, that's an interesting one. I mean, I've had a few pretty panic attacky kind of days here and there, which is something that rears its head every now and again, and most of that's been kind of like when new bits of information come through about the state of my industry, which is pretty fucking stressful. But it's not just that, like, I don't know about you, I sort of tend to kind of go about my day, and then about twice a day maybe I suddenly go fuck and like remember what's actually happening.
I've been keeping myself occupied, trying not to think about it. So like, I've done all of the jobs you never ever get around to doing, like cleaning every little fixing the shed, fixing the fence, cutting the grass, all that kind of crap. And I've managed to sort of block myself off for the last couple of weeks, but I have come to the point now where I've got no more work I can do at the venue. I've got no more work I can do at home. And I am kind of like now just reading books and like, how long can I stave this off?
No, totally. I mean, I mean, I've definitely been plowing through some books I've been sort of putting off reading for quite a long time. I'm currently reading a 500-page book about communist intellectual fellow travelers in the 1930s, which is a subject I'm interested in, but like I've sort of, it's very dry academic history. It's not like
might be a bit heavy for me, sorry.
But so there's stuff to do like that, and and little things about sorting out the house and all the rest of it. My wife cleaned the cutlery drawer yesterday, which
that's how desperate it's got.
As an event. Yeah, and like cooking's not a terrible, if you're fortunate enough to have the ability to do that. But yeah, we made arancini last night. And that, nice. By the way, was a very royal use of the word we. I sat there and applauded while somebody else did the hard work. But yeah, so I mean, there's things to do, and it's funny, like I think that there's different phases of this. For me, like the first week was kind of blitz spirit, we're all in this together, fucking woo. And then you've got your to-do list. And then the second week was like, oh my God. And I sort of, second and third week, and I sort of feel a bit like now that you get a bit of a sense of it, you learn to kind of like eke out the interesting things that you have to do a bit longer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I love the fact, just listening to you two, Kieran was saying how he's done all the gardening, done all the housework, run out of things to do, and then reach for the book. Whereas Frank was like, I'm reaching for the book. House jobs and gardening not for you, no?
Well, no, I've been again. I mean, like I've been contributing to the gardening, shall we say, and doing little bits and bobs and hanging pictures around the house. I've had this glut of pictures hanging around that have been stacked against the wall and not on the wall. Look, there's some of them there. So little things like that. I bought a kit to like build a guitar.
Okay.
Like you don't like build it from scratch.
No.
You don't get given like a tree and a saw. Like, they send you like the body and the headstock, and then you have to sand it and paint it and cut it, glue it, and screw it and all this sort of business. It turns out it was much, much harder than I thought it was going to be. So I'm in the middle of kind of going, oh my God, about that, which is fun. But I mean, we'll see. I'll come out of this with an isolation guitar.
Cool.
Would you like to suggest a song that we could play to lead out the podcast?
That's a good question. I mean, I would, of course I would. I would like to suggest, you know what? I'm going to be a cheesy motherfucker. I would like to suggest a song by my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, she did but ironically enough, she did her first EP this year. I produced it.
Yeah.
We wrote the songs, played everything with members of a band, and it's frustratingly, this was going to be her year to like really give that a go, and it was going well. We were on tour together. She was selling a lot of EPs. The EP came out. It was everything was going to plan, and then global pandemic. Which is a bit of a kick in the ass. But yeah, so we're she's the EP is out there. It's on Spotify. She's selling them online as well if people are interested. But there's a song on the EP called "Brother in Arms," which is a great fucking song.
He was born in different days, before Bob or Dire Straits or the songs that he taught us. A life of usual complaints, little losses, little gains, eldest son, youngest daughter. But a heart can grow old like that. Yes, a heart can grow old like that. We were never much the same. You were wise and I was vain. I was words, you were numbers. Little sister, big brother, little need of each other, till the ground came from under us. But don't we all grow up like that? Yes, don't we all grow up like that? One of the wonderfuls. He was an old dying breed, and I stood on his shoulders when I was too small to see. And the burden we felt since then, the burden that you share with me, to be born of the best of men, to be an old dying breed. Packed your bags and took your pain to the north, into the rain. Fewer strains, fewer people. And with your hatches battened down, you defend your fading town from the waves with a seaboard. Oh, just don't grow old like that. Oh, just don't grow old like that. You are one of the wonderfuls. You are an old dying breed, and I stand on your shoulders
Jess has been writing songs and playing music for years and years and years, but she's been a bit reticent about it. And like, it was really cool taking her out on tour with me. But what we both are keen on is the idea of her not forever being coupled to me musically in the public perception. You know, not least because what she does is quite different from what I do. She's much more in the kind of Dar Williams kind of folky world kind of thing. So
and I'll just say to summarize, obviously we invited Frank on to talk about Music Venue Trust. So it'd just be good to have a little summary from you, Frank, just say if people want to get involved or raise money or do stuff or their local venues, whether it's through MVT or whether they do it through another channel. What would you suggest is the best thing to do? Well,
so what MVT specifically are doing right now, they as an organisation tend to work at quite a governmental level. Do you know what I mean? They are putting together kind of relief funds with the culture minister and all that kind of thing, and good for them, you know. And they're doing great and important work. At my end, I mean, I'm playing every Thursday. If people are free, they should tune in. One of my hopes that I am working on is that some other artists will start doing gigs like this for venues that they care about, which is an eminently easy thing to do. And I've been sort of bugging people I know to get involved because why not? Do you know what I mean? And not least because from an artist's point of view, there is self-interest as well. You're playing a show. It's cool. You get a whole bunch of people together and you don't have to leave the house. You know, you press one button on Facebook and you go. So, you know, I've been trying to get other people involved in this so that more venues can be part of this as well.
So there we have it. That is our two-part Frank interview. You can listen to the first part if you go back to our previous podcasts, because we are available on YouTube for video and then for audio on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor and Pocket Casts, as well as being taken by a few community radio stations as well now. So we are working our way to world domination.
It's been a very quick step. I'm expecting in about 2 months' time to be head of Radio 1.
You're too old, mate.
Actually, I met him last year, and he's young. Well, he is younger than me, so I am too old, but not by much.
he's had it. He'll be out. Give it 6 months. He'll be out the door for being too old as well.
Yeah, possibly. Really interesting guy, though.
Yeah. Do we know about any music streams this week? I know it's quite easy just to pop onto Facebook, look for musicians, and there will be streams. But I know you normally get involved and get a few organised.
Yeah, so I was so eager to do this podcast. I haven't actually organised one, officially confirmed it for next week, but there will be a stream next Wednesday, because there always is. So tune in next Wednesday for a podcast, for a live stream.
And the name of the cat is?
This is Donny. He happened to be walking past, so he's now YouTube famous.
Oh, so there we go. If you're not watching us on video, there's a reason to go watch us on YouTube. There is now a cat. I wish my cat was that willing to be picked up. If it's not on her terms, she will scratch your face off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We had him from a kitten, and I've got a great video of my daughter playing drums with him. So she sat with him on his lap, and she's like using his arms as drumsticks, and she's like doing drums. It's very sweet.
Oh,
sounds like cruelty, but it's not. He was he wasn't enjoying it, but he wasn't hurt. But that's why he's so docile now. So
yeah, that has been the Sheer Isolation podcast. We will be back next week for more. Have we got a new guest? Because we've run out of Frank material now.
The thing is, we've got millions of guests. It's about narrowing them down to one.
All right. Well, you just pick one out of the hat, and we will be joined by a special guest next week, I'm sure. Thank you for listening and being with us this week, and we will be back very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.